Amberlynn has uploaded another entry in her What I Ate Today series. She opens with a little disclaimer, a manifesto of defensiveness, if you will. Everything I eat now is better than what I used to eat. It's the classic, I could be worse, therefore I am good. That's not how progress works. By that logic, a house fire is fine as long as it's less destructive than the last one. She says she's using outpatient knowledge and Noom and combining them into a super secret hybrid program called I Do What I Want. So she's pieced together scraps of structure and weaponized them against accountability and demands applause. And then she tells us she won't be sharing her calorie counts because she hates being told she's wrong even when she thinks she's right. So the solution is to eliminate any avenue for correction. It's a neat trick. She also says, I learned to read nutrition labels at 10. Congratulations, I was learning Latin declensions at 10. Neither of us is better for it now. Her first meal of the day is takeout, because nothing says transformation journey like leading with Uber Eats. I knew we weren't going to get a boiled egg or a protein shake, not when there's an opportunity to validate your poor habits with buzzwords like moderation. This isn't moderation. This is rationed indulgence dressed in the corpse of a calorie tracking app. She says her meals are random, but they're not. They're emotionally driven, impulsive, and predictable in the chaos. She isn't building a new relationship with food. She's negotiating terms with her addiction. But she smiles into the camera and calls it progress. If you label the circus as therapy, you can pretend the clowns are therapists. The first meal is a roast beef sandwich and a side of salt sticks. The breakfast of champions, or at least someone determined to stay on brand with sodium bloat and denial. She proudly announces, this is the only thing I ever get from there. Darling, repetition doesn't make it better. You don't get a crown for consistent poor decisions. She dips, she chews, she moans, she tells us it's so freaking good. And I would hope so. If you're gonna spend your life losing that life to food, it better at least taste like divinity. So here she is, worshipping a sandwich like it's salvation. In the past I would have gotten 2 of these, she says. It's the classic Amberlynn metric of success. I'm only eating half as destructively as I used to. Which is still destructive. I used to set the whole house on fire, but now I just torch the living room. She counts the absence of dessert as a win, and she drinks a Diet Coke without a straw and acts as though it's a hardship. We're witnessing the Olympic Games of self-congratulation, and she is competing solo. There isn't any change in her behaviour, only the portion size, which means it's only a matter of time before that starts creeping back up. But let's watch her continue. I'm dying to see what other gourmet items await in this episode of How to Ruin Your Calorie Budget Before Noon. And then it's time for the next meal. Joy, a medley of vegetables and processed sausage. The health guru has arrived and she's brought the Pam spray. Now let us all take a brief moment of silence for the broccoli stems. Rejected, abandoned, ripped from their floral brethren because the texture is weird. She's just going to throw everything in at once, and of course she is. Why complicate it with actual technique or staggered cooking times? This isn't Top Chef, it's just a culinary car crash with seasoning from the spice rack of someone who thinks that garlic salt is complexity. It's so good, she says, biting into the mountain of vegetables slathered in oil spray, served with that suspicious glob of cottage cheese. The flavour profile is depression with a hint of I'm trying. The water makes its appearance like a minor deity. Second of the day, she announces. I guess we should be proud. Hydration is now content. We enter the realm of fantasy gluttony when she tells us what she would have eaten if she wasn't on track. Cheesecake Factory flashbacks, fried this, dipped that, artichoke trauma, and the Ben & Jerry's finale. I'm very wasteful, she says, as though it's a charming quirk and not a grotesque admission. She feels guilty, apparently, and I suppose that's meant to absolve her. This wasn't a meal. It was just a soft-spoken parable about how Brussels sprouts are redemption and takeout fantasies are cautionary tales. And the most tragic thing is that she thinks this is progress. She thinks this is the pinnacle of reform. And it's not long before alternate universe Amberlynn is back. In this fantasy timeline, the ramen flows like wine, the candy bars multiply like rabbits, and restraint is a distant dream. One candy bar isn't enough, she tells us. But here in the so-called on-track reality, a Diet Coke and a microwave pesto dinner from Amy's frozen vault of sadness. This is what we're being sold as victory. This is the trophy. And then the sermon returns as she's about to have a snack. She begins the monologue about allowing herself sweets because deprivation leads to downfall, as though she's the first human being to ever learn about balance. Darling, we've heard of moderation. We just don't believe you've grasped it. And of all the snacks to choose, she chooses an Almond Joy. It's the saddest choice in the candy aisle. You only eat an Almond Joy when someone's already ransacked the Halloween haul and left you with the wreckage. She says that if she wasn't eating this, she'd be eating a bowl of Fruity Pebbles. Once again, we measure success not by nutrition, but by amount. Not by mental peace, but by chaos in relativity. If this isn't a catastrophe, then it must be a triumph. That's the metric here. And that's not recovery. She's not eating mindfully, she's just rationing the dopamine. She's stringing together pre-portioned boxes of manufactured food and calling it healing. She talks of self-trust, and yet each meal is haunted by the ghost of what might have been. This isn't freedom, it's still prison. She tells us she wants to do something she's never done before. Could this be a genuine shift in accountability? A moment of real self-inquiry? No. On one side, she shows us the day's food, still drenched in Diet Coke and processed sadness. And on the other side, the spectre of binges past. Ramen, salami, chips, dessert, enough sodium to embalm a queen. This isn't transparency. This isn't optical manipulation. This is a woman saying, yes, I'm driving into a brick wall, but look how slowly I'm doing it now. She says that filming off-track videos feels bad. And it should. That's the sting of consequence. The discomfort of reality. But here we go again. Her mood matters more than the meaning. She'll never grow while her only metric for progress is emotional ease. Amberlynn believes that if she charts it, edits it, and compares it to something worse, it becomes success. But dressing up dysfunction in math and graphics doesn't transform it into healing. It's just empty content, and empty content isn't change. All she's doing is weaponizing the hypothetical. She says, look at this healthy meal I made. But in the past, oh baby, I'd have eaten crab dip, fried macaroni, a burger, wings, dessert, salami, ramen, ice cream. But I didn't. The subtext is always, praise me. I thought about binging and didn't. I wanted to, but I was good. It's not recovery. It's virtue signaling through imagined failure. Thinking about what she would have eaten isn't inherently a bad thing. When handled with maturity and used therapeutically, it can be a valuable cognitive behavioral technique. Reflection on prior behavior can illuminate patterns, triggers, emotional associations. It can reinforce growth, if it's framed as a tool for self-awareness, not self-congratulation. But that's not what Amberlynn does. It keeps Amberlynn tethered to food as a fantasy. Instead of disentangling her emotional identity from food, she's making restraint the new obsession. The binge remains central, and now it's just part of a bragging monologue. She pits what I used to eat against what I eat now, without evaluating why either is happening. She never asks what purpose the food serves, what triggers the craving, what emotion is being smothered. It just centers the performance, not the process. She wants credit for the food she didn't eat, but recovery isn't a scoreboard. She shouldn't be fantasizing about her old eating like a reformed villain fondly remembering her kill count. In this case, that kind of comparative thinking is a bad thing. Because for Amberlynn, it's not reflective, it's not curious, she's not deprogramming the binge mindset, she's just turning it into a monologue. She's still romanticizing the behavior she's trying to recover from. And you don't recover from a thing by turning it into a bedtime story. She ends her What I Ate Today with food for thought, which is a bad name considering no thought ever takes place. A more fitting title might be Self-Praise Sprinkled with Delusion. She says if she had to improve something, she wouldn't. Maybe she'd swap her Arby's to dinner and have breakfast instead. What a suggestion, rearranging the foods to a different order. It's revolutionary. My inner dietitian just burst into tears. She was tempted to order again, but she said no. And the problem isn't that she had the thought. The problem is that she wants applause for it. You don't get applause for not doing the thing you're allegedly recovering from for 10 years. That's the baseline. She says that she sometimes beats herself up for having Arby's or candy. No, she doesn't. She's doing PR for cravings. Every time she eats fast food, she makes a dramatic TED talk about how it's part of her healing. That's not moderation, it's justification. And to add a final flourish, she tells us there is science behind it. The more you say no, the more you want it. And yes, that is true. But for adults, it's just called impulse regulation. It's a thing grown people develop through effort. It's not something you get through quoting TikTok psychology to enable your every whim. So, no, there was no food for thought. There's only processed meat for ego. She doesn't reflect, she rationalizes. And until that changes, we will continue to be treated to videos where the message is essentially, I could have eaten 10,000 calories, but I only ate 6. Applaud me. But no, I will not. And so we end. Another day, another delusion sautéed in self-congratulation and served lukewarm to an audience she pretends to hate. She believes she's showing growth. What she's actually showing is edited restraint and revisionist accountability. But we see through it. We always see through it. Until next time, stay sharp, stay shady, and for the love of all that's holy, do not reward your moderation with Arby's.